welcome. Good morning. Our team, Archicats, in our presentation here for you about our project this semester and how it went. Just kind of an outline, we'll do a project overview, kind of briefly summarize what it was that was defined as our project. We'll go through our individual responsibilities and the processes for our models that we had designed ourselves. Then we'll take a field trip out, look at the models, and describe them to you. At which point, then afterwards, we give some time for questions. As an overview of remembering last semester, our problem statement was that Weber State University, there's not a convenient, comprehensive architectural construction model, including the details from footing to roof, that exist in a safe, non-construction environment for students to further increase their knowledge of the residential construction process and materials. After looking at 2D drawings, students may become confused as to what the drawings are representing in reality. Our design statement was the purpose of the project is to provide a real-life, full-scale example of the features and details that go into the construction of a residential structure. This would be a hands-on architectural detailed section for students and teachers of all ages and genders. The constraints was that it had to fit through a doorway, so the size had to be 2 feet 8 inches wide by 8 feet long by 6 feet 6 inches high. So it could be moved and taken through a doorway. We wanted realistic, not partial or not the fake materials, not to represent it how it truly was. It consisted of multiple models that were movable to be able to move out of the concrete pad, and then fit within budget and low maintenance. Our 6 models that we had come up with was the foundation, a stairs model, a kitchen model, a bathroom model, exterior model, and a doors and windows model, each of which have who designed it and worked on mostly next to it. And you can see the design images there at the bottom. My name is Samuel Heiner. I was the project lead for the group. The main tasks or responsibilities I guess I had was to organize everything in moving the project in the meetings, making sure that as a project we were running on schedule and doing all the tasks that were needed, help make sure that we stayed on task, assisted any of the tasks that were needed for completion of the project, helped my fellow team members in their models as well as they helped with mine. So we had a really good teamwork effort. We did a very good job as a team. I had an awesome team. I don't know how else to explain it other than that. They were disciplined, diligent, they got right on task of everything. We developed some great friendships. I mean, I think that we'd have a good time even outside of our project. A great, awesome team. We were able to get things done on time and no problems. Didn't have I had a fear of hearing some horror stories, I guess, of some past projects and bad experiences through that. It was a great experience to know that I didn't have to deal with that myself. So the model I had was the foundation model. And the construction process for that was starting with the framing. Framing for, you can kind of see in this bottom picture here, the framing of the one wall, the floor joists, and placing the flooring, getting it all connected with the foundation to visually represent how it connects with the foundation to finished floor. It also consisted of the concrete look, which you can see, the tar on the outer edge where the ground is touching the concrete, and then the finished touches was cold air return and a heat register on the flooring.
My name is Jay Galbraith, and I was the scheduler. I'd like to echo what Sam said. Having a good team made my job a lot easier. As any project goes, I'm sure the schedule changes, and that happened with ours. What made it a lot easier was every Tuesday we had our meeting, our weekly meeting, and we would discuss what we were going to do for the next day, and then also talk about what materials we would need for that day if we didn't have them, and also the following weeks. We were always trying to stay 1 week ahead of what we were going to do. The schedule also changed a little bit depending on the availability of the materials and how we were ordering. Some things took a little bit longer to get, and so we revised the schedule trying to incorporate those conflicts. And then also we didn't have too many reworks. We had one or a couple fairly large ones that set us back a week or so, but we were able to recoup that time a little bit later on. Original schedule was what we talked about last semester. We had just a brief, rough idea of what we were going to do. We had originally thought about doing 2 weeks per display and finishing each one after we've started it, as you see there, and then that left us a little bit at the end of the semester to do the finishes and presentation. Once we started this semester, we revised that to try to hone in on what exactly we were going to do. And so we took this approach of maybe starting 2 models at a time, do the framing the first couple of weeks. After the framing was done, move on to the next couple of weeks. Finish those 2, like the display of the stairs, the windows, and doors. Finish those while the others in the team would start 2 more. And so we'd have 2 or 3 finishing one, 2 and 3 starting the other one. So we would kind of progress that way. That's continuation of the revised schedule. Continuing that, and then we also tried to make sure that the exterior displays you see in week 9 through 13 had the most time, because we knew that one was going to take a long time. So we wanted to get the other ones out of the way. The bathroom and the kitchen, we knew how to have plumbers come in, so we kind of tried to push those back so we had a little bit of buffer. And then again, week 14 seems like it never changed with the documentation and presentation. The actual schedule was a lot different because it was mostly dependent on material availability. When we got the material, we used it and we built. So what ended up happening is we framed the entire, from week 2 to 5, we framed everything all at once. We were a little bit concerned on space in there, but we were able to shift some things around. So everything was framed by week 5. By week 6 through 13, or actually from that point on, we worked on the exterior display as much as we could per week. Week 7 is when we wanted to have the kitchen and bathroom completed to the point where we could have the plumbers come in, everything framed, everything ready to go. They did, they came in and it was plumbed. And then week 10 is when everything finally started to finish up. The stairs was the first to finish on week 10. Closely after, week 11, the doors and windows was completed, and the foundation was completed that same week. The bathroom and kitchen were completed by week 12 because the plan was the plumbers were going to come back and finish everything. So those had to be completely finished, painted, sheetrock, cabinets in, everything. By week 13, the exterior display was finished, which was last week, and then this week that we're in right now. I was in charge of the stairs and also the kitchen. With the stairs, that's the basic process that was taken. Do the framing first with the walls, the joists, the beam, and the stringer. Put on the casters after that was all built so we could move it around. The sheetrock came up next, painted, then did the banisters and railing, and then just the baseboards and touch-up work here and there. Kitchen construction was similar. Framing first and the casters. The electrical was done and then plumbing, as I mentioned. Sheetrock painting, cabinets, and so on. And that was it.
Okay, my name is Millie Allred. I was the executive secretary, and I was also in charge of documentation. I was responsible for the meeting notes. Each week I would create an outline, and then we would follow the outline and write down what was accomplished the past week, what needed to be accomplished the next week, and the supplies that we needed. Along with the rest of the group, we kind of came up with a donation letter that we could send out to people in order to get some of the items donated. And we also came up with a phone script. I was also responsible for assembling the final binder, documentation binder, which includes the design brief, the drawings and change orders, the schedule, the budget, and all the information for donations, the meeting notes, all the group emails, the contacts, and the pictures, and a data CD. I was in charge of the bathroom, and in that construction process, we started out with the base and the framing, and then we put the casters on for mobility. One of the things that we learned from my model was that it's hard to take them outside on the concrete and gravel because we were moving them into the concrete lab over here and we thought outside would be a good idea. And when the caster hit the concrete that ran into the gravel, it fell off. So after that point, we reinforced the screws and made them all a little bit stronger. With the plumbing was next, and it was kind of hard trying to find a plumber, but after playing phone tag and going through all the contacts and names, we found out that there's a Weber State University on the Davis campus. They have a plumbing program, so we actually had their students come in and do the plumbing. So the plumbing was done by students also. Then we finished with the sheetrock and the electrical. Then the plaster and the painting, the vanity and the sink. And then around the back there is a flue chase and we put those in. And then we also had a fold down door in order to show the space requirements in a bathroom and also the outline of the tub. And then some of the things I learned through the process were teamwork. It takes most of the things in the construction process, you have to have two people at least helping you hold things together while you nail, or just stuff like that. And I also learned that you have to think ahead. There was some things like we wanted a recessed kitchen, or not a kitchen, bathroom vanity, no, a mirror that would go in, but we couldn't fit it in because there was a 2x4 in the way. So that's just something that I learned, that you have to think ahead all the way through the entire process before you begin.
I'm Stephanie Hunter. I was in charge of safety and quality. For safety, we started out with our design. We made sure that we had rated hinges for the bathroom model as well as casters that could lock so they wouldn't run away. And then safety and construction, we had supplies for safety glasses, gloves and earplugs. And then we had a safety log that allowed us to check in and out while we were working so that we knew that no one was left behind or no one was bleeding to death in the back of the lab or anything. And then it also served a purpose that allowed us to keep track of our hours, how many hours we'd spent. I also put together a first aid kit and an accident report, but we didn't ever have any serious accidents that ended up on the accident report. And we tried to stay as close to the buddy system as we could while we used power equipment in the lab so that if anything did happen, we'd have someone there to help us out. And then for quality, I put together the engineering change order. Our main purposes for the engineering change orders, or the revisions that we came up with, was that we found something that would work better, that increased educational value, or we just built it differently, or it increased safety, aesthetic appearance, or we just made a team decision that we wanted to do it a different way. We had the managers for each of the different models be in charge of their own engineering change orders because they had the most knowledge about their model as well as just more experience with it, and then we had everybody sign off on it that it was a team decision to increase the quality. And then mine was the exterior model, and when we started out, I didn't have a cut sheet for mine, so I had to go into the lab and make a cut sheet so that I could get all my 2x4 lengths, and then we started framing and put the floor together and the trusses. And then we did the exterior sheeting and the skylight location, all the electrical and interior drywall. And then we moved on to the roofing and the interior finishes. Put the shingles, roofing vents, strip edge around, and then painted the inside, put all the trim on. And then for our last end, we did the exteriors on the outsides. We put the brick and the stone and the stucco and the siding and the vented soffit, fascia, and gutter around the side.
My name is Clinton Engelman. I was in charge of accounting, or the treasurer. We're going to go over a comparison between last semester's budget and this, and what we actually spent, as well as what our accounting was, donation list, and then a delivery system for getting material. Now, last semester, I know there was some concern that we might not reach our budget, but as we progressed through this semester, we found that we actually only consumed 45% of our lumber budget, 250% of our fasteners budget. We grossly underestimated how much fasteners were and the many different types of fasteners you would have to buy when you're constructing all these different models. We consumed 56% of our electrical budget, 63% of our fixtures. Our heating and cooling and insulation, we consumed 40% of our budget and 36% of our budget as far as finishes go. So what all this led to was that we had a surplus at the end of about $2,500 from our original budget. Sorry, Andy, we spent all your money first, so we don't get any of it back. Now, as far as accounting goes, one of the ways I found it was easiest was just to set up a spreadsheet at the start and just stay on top of it. Once I established a precedence of how I wanted it done and how we spent a lot of time sending people out with petty cash forms, and we used the receipts and just got them reimbursed as soon as possible, and then that was taken from our account. So this is a list of all the expenditures we made, who made them, what date was made, and a little note about what was spent on them. And then I also reviewed with Pat. Pat was our go-to person on this. She was wonderful to work with. And at the end, we ended up being right on with her cent for cent. Now, donations, we kept a log of all the donations that people gave us, what they sent us, who was the contact person, where they lived, and we found out that it was actually pretty easy to get material donations. Money donations, not so much, but material people were more than willing to lend us some scraps, to give us some lumber that they couldn't use or couldn't sell. But the biggest problem with that was you had to always follow up with them and then set a schedule where you could go and pick up the material, because they wouldn't often deliver it to you. So luckily we had quite a few trucks in the group so we could go pick up stuff. Now, as far as delivery process, we used 3 methods of delivery. We used the buy it all at once method, which we used with the lumber. That way we had everything there so we could just start framing them all. Then, as we mentioned before, in weekly reports, we discussed what we need for the following day and then the next week. And then I'd write that down and we'd go pick it up. And then the third method, which was probably more common than it should have been, was the gopher method, where we need this, go for it. So Lowe's got a lot of midday visits from us. I was in charge of the door and window construction. We'll go and point things out in the lab, but one of the things I found that I learned from this is when you're framing a door, you leave the little piece of wood at the bottom. So when you roll up your walls, it's not flimsy. And then you cut that out afterwards. We tried it both ways, and it works definitely better when you leave the board at the bottom. And as far as ordering doors and windows, it's kind of difficult for them to understand you only need a 5-foot high door. Apparently they don't have those in stock. So we had to have custom-made doors for us, and they chopped them off at the bottom. And then windows, I must not have specified that it was the rough opening, because they sent us the exact size, and it's a pretty tight fit. So that was one thing I learned when ordering doors and windows. Now, we'd like to take you guys into the lab and show you our projects. Due to time constraints, we'll let you ask some specific questions at the model if you have them. But otherwise, please hold your questions till the end, and we'll give you time. So with that, we'd like to start. We're going to start over here in the plastics lab, and then we'll lead you through